That was a scary sermon.
Corey, long-winded, man.
He was longer, but I felt like every word he said was important.
It's passionate.
And
Anything
also,
over 30 minutes is just too long.
It's too,
also there was a lot of scripture that was read.
yeah, the scripture
Before and after.
was 15 verses.
Yeah.
And that's a
Well, no,
lot
I
of
don't mean by him. I
out of
mean,
song.
I'm
That
just-
song that we sang that went,
Yeah, that
15 verses?
plus the
15
last
verses of
verses,
scripture
the
that
last
he read.
verses.
Oh.
but there's the one song we sang that was quite a lengthy song.
Yeah. And
So-
the very last,
And the part, we saw a video of what happened at Centrifuge, and then earlier in the order of worship, we saw a video of what happened to in Centra Kid, because did they just get back, or that was last week?
I think that was last.
a storm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming everybody here, their house and property and everything was okay, that you didn't lose anything during the storm?
Just a tree.
Just
That's
a tree. And that can be fixed. Just plant another one.
But we got to chop it up first.
You got to chop it up first. Yeah, the church was fortunate that that tree that was,
Yeah,
it split, and it really didn't do any
damage?
It really didn't do any damage.
Did it hit the building?
It was like half of it, a little bit laid over on, I guess it would be the sanctuary, would have laid over on a part of the sanctuary. So, but almost no damage whatsoever.
If the whole tree would have gone that way, then. why didn't
If
we
the
do
whole
that?
tree had gone that way, but the tree split.
The Lord
And-
takes care of his own.
So I know I read there were houses condemned in Pasadena because of the storm.
Oh, wow.
I saw
Really?
the pictures, and Carl was saying, oh, are you gonna take care of that tree? Cause our neighbor let me know that, cause I
Right.
asked her we were gone. And when I realized nothing hit the house, I was going, well, after I saw the pictures and I saw trees and cars on houses, I said, we're gonna be so down the pecking order.
Of them, yeah.
We might as well just wait
Well,
till
they
we
had a
get home.
tornado?
No, it was
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
was it that they decided it was a
I
tornado
don't know,
or
but
was
mom
it
heard like
straight
something
line?
sounded like a train. Carl's mom was home and she said, it sounded like a train. I said, that's a tornado.
Yeah. Well,
I saw some trees that were twisted.
that's-
Tornado does that,
Yeah.
not a straight wind.
Well, as far as I know, or y'all know, no one was killed as a result of it.
No, I hadn't heard of it.
So that's a blessing. You can replace houses.
Yeah.
You can't. But for some, losing a house or losing a car is almost not recoverable
Yeah,
from.
it can be
It can
devastating,
be devastating.
especially in this economic time.
Yes.
We had
Yes.
a couple in our subdivision where we live that, their house burned down. Here about, it's been a year now, close to a
Right.
year. And, they've been working on it, but they still, after a year, they still don't have the siding on the house.
That takes a long time.
I bet they've been fighting with the insurance.
Probably. Probably.
You had
The
said
insurance don't wanna pay.
you had said we can plant a tree. Well, like people my age, I'd never see it grow.
That's true. Get you a maple, they grow pretty fast. Then you have maple roots everywhere, and try to planting on top of maple roots is.
Try and do anything on top of maple roots.
I was talking about how great my neighbors are. One came and fed our cats twice a day. And then she watered. We got a bunch of flowers along the front. She watered my flowers, and then on Wednesday or Thursday, another neighbor came and watered. So I'm telling you, I'm just grateful for the neighbors that we have. Okay, I think we'll do our prayer request at the end, but let's open in prayer, okay? Father, I just thank you for within the storm, your protection was there, that no one lost their life. Father, for those who have lost everything, I pray, Lord, there will be people around them who will help them recover. Lord, I also pray that insurance companies would work and be faithful to their obligation for their customers so these people can start again. Father, we're thankful too that the damage to our church was absolutely minimal. And Father, his needs are come out in the community. Lord, I ask that we as a church would be sensitive to them and find a way to meet them. So, Father, as we begin your study in Judges today, we just ask for your blessing and for learning new things that we had never known before. In your name I pray. Amen. I got to thinking as I was praying, they're going to talk about they're participating in a stuff in backpacks to give to children in the community who they don't have. It takes a bunch of money to buy school supplies. It really does. And I was thinking as you can sign up and bring stuff to go in the backpack. There might be kids who lost a lot in this storm that might get what they need in a backpack. So if you hadn't thought about signing up, it's out there at the sign up station, for want of a better word, then you may want to think that, because it is mind boggling what stuff costs. But now you can get a good deal at the it's not the dollar store. Yeah, I guess it's the dollar store over in BJ's. They do some good sales on stuff. Judges, y'all. Poor Dom didn't have to teach last Sunday, so he prepared a lesson that I just said, hang on to it. At some point, you may use it. Two main things that we're going to see throughout the book is when God's people forget, but God still remains faithful. And then this verse is going to keep showing up throughout. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And that's from Judges, but I guess we could apply that to right now as well.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
That's the same thing, and we'll hit
Exactly
that
the
again.
same thing.
Now, there was consequences of sin. Okay, now I'll go there. I meant to take my teacher's guide with me on vacation so I could start prepping early. It must have been a sign from God. It did not get packed. And so all my prepping was last night, and I finished about 10:30. So if
It's fresh in your mind.
oh yeah, it's fresh in my mind, but just bear with me if I seem to stutter on stuff, because I didn't have as much time like I normally do. Okay, so I figured it might be good to get, I keep thinking 4 weeks in a book, to get an overview of what's Judges about, because we're not going to hit all of Judges, okay? So and these are going to have to do a good bit of reading at the beginning. Just bear with me on that. I knew that Judges, the people sinned, not sent. They cried out to God. God sent a judge, and the people were delivered. What I didn't know is you look throughout the book of Judges, and each situation gets worse. It's not, you could call it the spiral downhill of sinning, calling out to God, and deliverance. So they got themselves in more trouble as the book of Judges went on. That second main point within this whole book, everybody did what was right in their own eyes. We're going to sit down on that thought a little bit later. Now, they were told to drive out the Canaanites. And they didn't. And that caused problems all along. And we'll talk about that again, but that was a major thing. They compromised with the Canaanites, and then they paid the price of that. They had to experience God's discipline, but his mercy hangs in there and is persistent. Now, this last one, something to think about. Israel needed more than better leaders. See, the judge was the military better leader. They needed to adhere to the covenant they had with God. They need their hearts renewed. And ultimately, they needed a king who would deliver. And who is that going to point all the way to? That'll point all the way to Jesus. Now, I thought, how did Judges impact in the Old Testament? Then I'm going to look at how it impacted in the New Testament and how it impacts today. And this is all part of kind of the whole arc of where the book is going. I didn't know this part, okay? At the end of Joshua, what did Joshua have to do? When you get really old, what do you do?
You die.
At some point, but I'm saying very old, you die. So Judges gives us more of what's going to happen to Israel. The end of Judges is Joshua. Joshua makes the powerful statement, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." That did not continue in the book of Judges. Okay?
Do we know who wrote the book of Judges?
Dang.
I'm just curious.
Let me look.
Who
Who wrote the book of Judges?
Samuel.
Samuel, thank you. Samuel. Because Samuel's going to come up after Judges. We're going to get 1st and 2nd Samuel. You studied more than I did.
So he wrote 3 books.
Yes. He may have written more, but those are the ones that we know. Usually I'll do, at the beginning, I'll get to who wrote the book and the time that it was written, so I didn't include that. I'll do it next time. Judges shows the next question. What happens when the next generation does not know the Lord or remember his word?
It's disciplined.
He's going to end up disciplined. Joshua knew the Lord. He knew his work, and he claimed the covenant. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Judges, they depart from that. And then the final thing, throughout the book, we're going to read a number of times the words, "There was no king in Israel." So the people of Israel, now they don't get a king in Judges. That's going to come later on in 1st and 2nd Samuel. But they're almost blaming everything. If we had a king, we wouldn't be doing all this stuff.
Let's be like all the other.
Let's be like all the other countries. We want a king. Well, the king they had, Saul, was a
Disaster.
Was a terrible king.
They picked him out of his appearance.
Yeah.
That was the mistake.
But David was a good-looking guy too.
Yeah,
But he
David
was
followed the
anointed. Absolutely. God does not have anything against good-looking guys or ladies. Okay, so, but because of what was happening to Israel in Judges, there was the desire, if we had a king, it would fix all this. Well, they got a king, and did it fix all this?
Nope.
No. Okay. So, Old Testament, impact of Judges. Now, here's New Testament. Judges shows the need of a better deliverer. So each judge was not in quote power, I don't know a better word for that, for 40 or 50 years.
So it was just to get them out of their trouble.
It was to get them out of the bad situation they'd gotten themselves into. So it gave temporary deliverance, but none provided lasting civilization. None provided lasting salvation.
Only Christ.
It shows the failure of human rescue alone. We can't deliver ourselves. Sometimes we barely can get through the day. If it's a tough day. Now, you think, I don't know which one of these people that we're going to study. There's Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah. I'll be looking to see, I may disagree with the particular one we're going to study in the upcoming weeks. But anyway, these 4 people were judges. And they're mentioned again in the chapter of faith, chapter 11 in Hebrews. So they had enough impact that the writer of Hebrews wanted to include them as some of the faithful. But y'all, every single one of these people were flawed.
Because we're human.
Because they're
just like we
human.
are.
And I don't remember which one it was, But it took a female judge. God used a female judge, Deborah, and I think it was with Gideon, who he did not want to do what she was telling him to do, and then he wanted her to go out to battle with him, which so flawed people can still be used. Okay, now we're applying it today and applying the whole book. And again, I'm sorry, there's a bunch of this. So remember when I did 2 weeks ago, I drew the chairs with the impact that one generation's fate doesn't necessarily become the next generation. So if we never, let's talk about them, and or Kara too, if we had never taught them and hopefully lived out before them and practiced it and drugged them to church every time the doors were open, would I have passed that on?
No.
And then Kathia passed on to Josh, and they're passing on to Eli, even when you want to pinch his head off. How many of you ever wanted, not just kids, how many have ever wanted to pinch somebody's head off?
Today.
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 Oh, your taste early.
On the way
Oh,
out.
no. Grandson who is in his beginning of his teenage years.
Yeah,
I would love to pinch his head off many times.
13. 13 can be tricky with teenagers. I have to tell you, our two, we fly them down with us, fly them back, and we have some special activities on vacation that we just do with them. They were so good. They were just really, really good for a week. And you put an almost 13-year-old and a 14-and-a-half-year-old, and one's a boy and one's a girl, and girls mature emotionally a little bit older. Yeah, they're more further down the maturity pike than a almost 13 boy. But the kids were, if they were told to get up, they got up. If they were told you got to get dressed, you've got 20 minutes or whatever, they would do it.
Sounds like our grandkids.
We're proud of them for this week because it could sure make a vacation miserable if two teenagers were being a pain. So
All it takes is one.
All it takes is one. But two could be, but they've been taught this stuff. Now that doesn't make them perfect because we've been taught this stuff. And do we do stupid stuff? Sure we do.
We
And
all do.
Huh?
We all do.
We all do. So the second one, and this is what Israel did, it was partial obedience because they were supposed to do what to the Canaanites?
Get rid of them.
They were supposed to get rid of them. And they didn't do it. They let some remain in the land. They let some become their servants. And that became full compromise. They tolerated what God told them not to tolerate. Over time, though, toleration became participation.
Yeah, they married.
They married, they intermingled. And so instead of being faithful to the covenant, so Joshua was faithful to the covenant. Judges begins. And in Judges, there comes the part, I'll do a part of what you say, God, but I really don't want to kill that person who might be my slave if I'm going to employ him. And then you go on, tolerance becomes participation. So what you're tolerating doesn't seem like you're tolerating anymore. It seems like the standard stuff.
Then you start taking into their idolatry and all
And
that.
then you go into all that. And then God disciplines. And then you need a judge. And it just keeps going. Okay, doing
But it's
what's
just like today.
well, I'm getting to that.
Exactly like
That
today.
is exactly like today. The thing, doing what's right in our own eyes. Sometimes we hear the statement, you just live your truth.
Do what feels right.
Huh?
Do what feels right.
Do what feels right. No one can tell you what is right for you. The statement, live your own truth. I will never forget the first day of Thea's freshman year in college. And so, of course, I worked there. And she had a speech class. And she came straight to my office after the speech class. And she said, Mama, you won't believe what he talked about. I said, okay. You know what I thought he may have talked about is freshman, first year in class in speech. He said, Mama, he asked, who in here knows and believes there's an absolute truth? Now there was, I think, only one person who raised their hand, because Kathia knew what the words absolute truth meant. There are some things that are true. Period.
End of sentence.
End of sentence. But today we have live your own truth. Well, maybe my truth says that the sky is blue, but Dennis's truth says the sky is polka dot. There are some things that are true, that can't be negotiated, that it's just the way it is. Now, this is a relief. God can use flawed people. There's going to be flawed people throughout this entire book. There's flawed people throughout this entire Bible.
There's flawed people in this room.
There are flawed, let's see, how many? There are 12 flawed people in this room.
Amen.
Amen.
And I'm the worst.
Ken, are you 2 flawed people back there? Should I count you twice? God's people need spiritual memory. Do we remember? We need to remember what God did, because here comes that really rough time and we can think back, but God was faithful to us. That's encouraging. When you know, some of you in your life have already faced horrible circumstances, just horrible, whether it's a loss of a child, whether it's health, whether it's all kinds of things. But if we remember when God was faithful in the past, that can speak to us, for God is to be faithful for now and the future. He doesn't change his mind. His mind also says there is not, you do your own truth. Or, I love this one, you do you. You do you. When we're going on a trip in the fall, and so I'm in a Facebook group that's are people who are going on the trip. And one of the questions people always ask is, what can you wear on the trip? I mean, like ocean cruises, at least 2 nights, you get all dressed up and all this stuff. Well, it's a lot more relaxed. No, you don't have to dress up. You just wear what's comfortable. You don't want to look like a bum, and the statement people use is, you do you. So if you want to wear a fancy dress, which no one does, and you would really stand out, or you just wear a sweater and pants. It's okay in some situations to say, you do you. On the things of eternity, there is no you doing you on it. Whew. I told you I'd be talking a lot. We gotta get, I apologize for this much talking, but we gotta get the background, because 2's not gonna mean anything if we don't know all this stuff. So here's one, okay? One's like, chapter 1's sort of a military operation that gets described, okay? So Judah, the tribe of Judah, starts off doing well, defeats some enemies. You hear about Caleb. Caleb is one of the faithful spies. His family shows up again, but this guy is going to become one of the judges. Othniel, that works for me. So Jerusalem is attacked, but here we go. That broader conquest is left incomplete. That's what God didn't want to be left incomplete. Tribe after tribe of Israel fails to fully drive out the Canaanites. They partially, but theirs goes back to that partial obedience. In some place I mentioned that Israel subjects the Canaanites to forced labor, then removing them. So if they kill them as God had ordered. Now, why did God, that sounds, we don't kill people. Well, we do kill people, I'm sorry, whether in war or other circumstances today. Why did God want the Canaanites removed?
Right, so that they wouldn't influence.
They wouldn't influence. And now looking at this in Judges, how long is that influence going to continue?
For a long
time.
time.
Remember when we studied the kings, the northern kings, and boy, they failed because of their influence of paganism. And Judah fell a couple of hundred years later because of how their kings had done. So this chapter 1 begins with obedience. You know, Judah went out to attack some enemies and was faithful. But it ends with compromise that's going to doom Israel, even though God sent judges and deliverance. Remember, that spiral's going to keep going down.
But all of that, every bit of that was leading up to the only way that we're going to be forgiven is through Christ.
The only permanent deliverer.
Right.
Let me get, again, I'm sorry I'm talking so much. Now we're diving into chapter 2. But of course, we're doing the whole chapter because, again, they started the wrong verses. Did I tell you I emailed the Lifeway? Did I tell y'all as a class? I got so aggravated maybe a month ago how they don't do the right verses. They just plop you down in the middle. And if you don't know what happened in 1 and 9, 10's not going to make as much sense. So I wrote them and said, this is the problem you're creating. Why don't, on really important chapters, divide it into two Sundays? It's not weird to do that, is it?
Nope.
Nope.
We do it all the time.
We do it all the time. And the guy did, it was very nice. He wrote back and he said he would send my suggestions to the team that writes the books, the material that we use. So maybe 2 years from now, we'll see if they make any changes. Maybe. Okay. My question is, would you want to be fussed at? I almost put fussed at instead of rebuked by the angel of the Lord, which indicates a heavier level of correction, rebuked or fussed at? Rebuked, yeah. If somebody, this is 1 through 5, we're going to move pretty quick through this. Would somebody read the scriptures for me in white? Okay, somebody read for me. I got it.
Angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochum and said, I brought you up out of Egypt and led you into the land I swore to give you ancestors. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land. But you shall break down their altars, yet you have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? And I have also said, I will not drive them out before you. They will become traps for you, and their gods will become snares to you.
Now, the last verse is really serious business. But let me ask, why would God send an angel to remind them of the covenant?
Be more powerful than.
Because they forgot.
They had forgotten, and it would be more powerful. I don't think it would impact us as much today, only from the standpoint of we get all special effects on television and movies. If you watch the very first Star Wars, it came out in like 1977, 78. We had a mom and son in this church, and they must have gone, and remember, people watched it tons of times. And they had gotten up to like 20 times of, they had more money than we did to spend on movies. But every time, they picked up more stuff. That was a whole change in how movies were. And now with AI and all this stuff, on my Facebook page, I get the little short reels. I love that because it's an algorithm that starts showing you what you watch a lot. So for some reason, I have got stuck on watching big dogs and babies and how I know, but it's how the big dog protects the baby in the family or the toddler in the family. I don't know why I find that interesting, but I do. But some of them are manufactured by AI. And so I watch one, then I have to figure out, do I think that was made by AI? or did I think it was a for real thing? Today we see all this stuff and an angel appeared. Our first question might be, how's that getting produced? You know, but for them, an angel would, I can't imagine anything more frightening. What do you bet they did? What was the physical reaction? When
They fall flat on their face.
they'd fall flat on their face? So here comes this angel to rebuke them. What was God's motivation in doing that?
To change their minds, to change their actions.
And what was the driver between wanting them to change their actions?
Show them what they had done wrong.
Show them what they've done wrong.
His love for them.
But God's motivating factor was his loved one. Now, second question. Why would God have told them to not make a covenant with the pagan people of Israel?
Because he knew what would happen.
And-
He knew that they would intermingle. Eventually they would intermarry.
There were times later on where God tells his people, this is during the kings, northern kingdom, don't you go make a military covenant with Egypt. And doggone, they went ahead and did it, and disaster came. So what was going to be, at the end of these verses, Israel's going to pay a price for compromising and not breaking down their altars. The very end, what's the price Israel's going to pay? What's God going to do? He's going to punish them. Look at
Discipline.
it. I will not drive them out before you. I would have sooner if you'd been obedient, but now you're going to live with this. They will become traps for you, and their gods will become snares to you. Their false gods are going to draw Israel to them. So you are going to pay for your disobedience. Does that sound harsh?
Sounds like today.
Do you see, we saw a lot of kids while we traveled in the airport. You know, there was one we were in Savannah ready to fly home, and there was this little kid, maybe 2 years old, who was just, it wasn't I'm sad cry. You know, we can tell these cries. It was just, I am mad, I don't like this. And all I could think was, and they were standing kind of to the side of where our gate area was, and I just thought, dear Lord, please let them fly on another plane, because I don't want an hour and a half of a
Either that or let me pinch his head off.
just that. I don't want to have to listen to an hour and a half of a mad kid. It's different from listening to a little bitty baby who doesn't have a clue what's happening to that. But they're going to pay the price. Oftentimes when we saw kids disobeying and all that kind of fussy on vacation, I would think, were those parents smart enough to make those kids take an afternoon nap?
No.
And maybe they won't be, they're paying the price for what they did not do to have a little bit of rest time.
Turned him asleep until before he had to the airport.
Benadryl. I gave, when our sweet neighbor was flying with her one son the first time to Kosovo, I said, just give him a little dose of Benadryl that the doctor would say it was okay. Because I said, we did it all the time when we flew the kids. They didn't care. They were happy, went to sleep. The neighbors sitting around us on the plane were happy.
And you were happy too.
I was happy too. So by the second or third trip that she had flown, it's a long way to Kosovo. Yes, she had learned the trick of the Benadryl. I hope y'all don't think that's an awful thing to do.
As long as you don't overdose on this.
No, we would never do that. Okay. Verse 4 and 5.
Oh.
When the angel of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites. Now listen to this. The people wept aloud, and they called the place Bochim. There they offered sacrifices to the Lord. And my point, tears aren't the same as repenting. Now, Carl, let me make sure I want you to, it's like 1 minute video. Let me turn this on.
Battery full.
Battery full. Okay. Y'all, this is Jimmy Swaggart. Back in the day, how many of you have heard of his name? Okay. Back in the day, he was one of the most well-known televangelists. He was connected to the denomination of Assemblies of God. He had this huge television ministry, raking in a lot of money. He was right up there with Jim and Tammy Faye Baker when they were all. So now, Jimmy Swaggart was caught with a prostitute in a hotel room. Okay, so this is when he was before his huge church, and it said that one Sunday there were more people, and I mean huge church. There were more people at that church that Sunday than whatever had been. There were thousands there. I'm not talking about 500. I want you to watch what he says and look at his face, okay? I want to be able to where I can turn up the sound. Carl, when I'm doing this, I ought to have you sit up here in case I mess it up. Okay, here we go.
Against you, my Lord.
Okay, that's obviously too loud. Sorry. Let me back it up a little. Okay. I mean, this is only 34 seconds, so. Okay, you see his face there.
I have sinned against you, my Lord. And I would ask that your precious blood would wash and cleanse every stain until it is in the seas of God's forgetfulness, never to be remembered against me anymore.
Called crocodile tears.
What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think he did that for the audience. Oh, have pity on him. But I don't think he was a good guy.
So we pretty much, he didn't have a tear on his face, y'all. Let's just be, personally, I didn't think. That's my opinion.
It'd make the makeup run.
It would make the makeup run, yeah. So I thought it would be interesting to see a little bit more what happened after this. And this is not, this is a link to. I would, so this is, I just did a search on Google. Follow his 1988 tearful televised confession. Jimmy Swaggart Ministries faced severe financial and organizational fault, including he was defrocked by so Assemblies of God say you're not going to be a ministry, you can't claim to be Assemblies of God. But Swaggart rebuilt the organization into a non-denominational operation that broadcast for decades. Now, I want to do a little bit more of show more because I found this fascinating. So the Assembly of God wanted you to be suspended for 1 year before you began trying to do ministry again. He wouldn't agree to it. So he resigned and he could no longer claim the Assembly of God. What he did was he created his own denominational church. Now he creates this network, and then he operates that. He died at 90. Then in 1991, he was caught again with a prostitute. So he did not. This happened. What was it in 88, 90, 91? 2 years later, he was doing the same thing. I wonder, are his tears, were they real? Did they really show repentance?
Of course not. They were crocodile tears. They were fake
How do we know there was not true repentance in his heart?
because he did it again.
He did it again. That behavior almost it destroyed his ministry. What if he had taken that year? Assemblies of God would have want him to be spiritually disciplined. I don't mean beat upon. I mean, let's look at what the word has to say about what I did. What are the responsibilities of ministry, for ministers? How deep is my repentance? He didn't want to do that 1 year process. He wanted to get right back, because what was the thing that he would get out of his ministry?
Money.
Money. He would get money out of his ministry.
I can understand. I can relate to that. Before I came to Christ, money was my God.
I was scared you were going to say prostitutes.
No. No,
I'm
never.
glad you said, you know, but if you look at the ministry, what made a lot of big name and even small name in churches fall was invariably had to do with a sexual sin. And God is gonna discipline. His ministry never was what it was.
And it failed quickly.
And he kind of hung on to the tail end of it for a lot of years, but the money and the giving, it really dried up. Do you know one thing I found interesting about Billy Graham is a part of his practice? He never would meet a woman alone by himself. If he had to have a meeting with a woman about, women who were serving in his organization, employment,
About anything.
he would never meet with her by himself.
He also traveled with,
At least one partner, and they stayed in the same room.
I'm sorry, he
traveled with another male, like friend, another male, always in the church too. And they stayed with him in the room so that there was never any question or ever any,
Yeah.
he couldn't.
So if you didn't quite hear that, Billy Graham also, he gave revivals all over the world. He had an accountability partner, a man who stayed in the same room with him, so that his name and conscience would always be clear.
Yep.
Now that's a man who's committed to faithfulness
And integrity.
and he's smart too.
I think he knew that, if there was temptation there, he was going to make sure he didn't succumb.
Yeah, that it may have been temptation and I'm not going to succumb, and that could very well be it, but it also, part of it could be a desire to keep his name above reproach, because ministries have been destroyed by that kind of behavior.
Even if it's false.
Even if it's false, if it never happened, if it's just somebody stirring up, it still can destroy. Because how can you prove something?
Yeah, unless you have that partner with
Right, who can prove? I don't know if there was a picture of episode 1 where he was in there may have been, the woman went on television, there must have been a picture, went on television and shared the story. One of these, you can go back and find all this. It's interesting. Now, Judges 2:6-9. This is pretty quick here. Somebody want to read that for us?
After Joshua dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land, each to their own inheritance. The people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath-Heres, and in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash.
Okay, they possessed the land. This happened in Joshua. It was divided up according to the tribes of Israel, and land on the right-hand side of the Jordan River was set aside for 2 of those tribes, with the caveat that if we need you to fight, you got to cross the river and come join. I love them. They had seen all the great things that the Lord had done for Israel. This is the first generation chair. And they buried him, okay? The land of his inheritance, I don't remember the tribe that Joshua belonged to, but they buried him in the tribe land of where his descendants were going to be, of the land he was given. Okay. And here, this is after that whole generation, generation 1, okay, the generation that crossed the Jordan, had been gathered to their ancestors. What does it mean, had been gathered to their ancestors? They died. What phrases do we use to say somebody
Passed away.
passed away? Any others phrases we use when we say
Deceased.
deceased?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kick the bucket.
Kick the bucket. Gone on to their great reward.
Did.
Maybe or maybe not. You know?
Well, that depending on what they did.
That's
You
dependent.
know, the reward could have been hell.
Okay. Throughout this whole, I did a search. I didn't read the entire Old Testament. Throughout the Old Testament, that's one of the same themes. If you don't pass on the faith to the next generation, that's where that compromise comes in. It doesn't hurt too much. Well, I want to go along to get along. That began to be if I can go along to get along. Sometimes it may be, what if when I was working at the university, I was the token, very conservative religious woman. Universities are tough on Christianity, especially if it's not a Christian university.
Yeah.
Mine was not a Christian university. I have to say, they treated me with the utmost respect. You know, I've told you before, I was the prayer, I was the invocation at funerals, memorial services for students, and we would have, unfortunately, some die. And I was the benediction giver. But there were gay faculty, and some I was close to. They were fabulous faculty I worked with, one department chair, but they would not come in and ask me my opinion on what did I think about their lifestyle, because they knew what I thought. One of the things I had on my bookshelf was an NIV Bible, pretty prominent right there. But there were others who seemed determined to come in, and I didn't work with them much. Let's see if we can nail this woman on what she believes. And I wouldn't seek out people to do that, but few would come around. I told you about the one who said, I can't believe you're married to a minister because you're not a doormat. I said, nope, I'm not, but and then I had you have one, it was called a 365 survey, and they would pick an administrator and like a staff member who worked for me and a few other people, and they would do a survey, on paper about me, and then you sat down with HR and you went through it to see how'd you come out. And one thing that came out was Tracy seems to be intolerant of some behaviors, and it would be better if she would be more flexible. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was the highest compliment.
Yeah. Not that you would be more flexible.
I was not. But so many others in that bunch would say, department chairs, she fulfills her obligations and keeps her word. So whoever said I wasn't flexible, that's okay. I didn't care. So here we go.
You enjoyed being non-flexible.
Some things I enjoyed, I would tell people, if you come to my office and ask my opinion, I am going to give you the truth as much as I know it. So if you don't want to know, don't come and ask.
Don't ask.
Don't ask, because I will tell. Okay, so I want to, I'm looking at these verses. What they do And what was their punishment? Now, their punishment is not listed in every verse, okay? So somebody read verse 11 for me.
And the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals.
Okay, so what they do?
They left the Lord and served the other gods.
They serve false gods. And some of these false gods had horrendous practices.
Oh yeah, they murdered their children.
They'd sacrificed their children.
Yeah.
Okay, how about somebody else pick up and read verse 12? What they do?
They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped various gods of the peoples around them.
So does what they did in verse 12 sound like what they did in verse 11?
Oh, it gets greater.
Yeah. This was such, if you look throughout Israel and you tried to nail down one of the main sins was worshiping other gods. Because there goes your standard of truth. If one practice says of another god, and I think it was Baal, we want you to murder one of your children for this. You know, I think they threw them into the fire.
Well,
go ahead. I sure could be.
They'd put them in jars, like urns, and either burn them or put them in the earth. But it was the sacrifice of the young to
Sacrifice
like
it
was a sacrifice to that other god.
to the god, exactly. Okay, somebody read verse 13.
They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsake him and serve Baal and me. That's the right.
That's okay.
Hard word.
Hard word. That's what we can do. So now we're seeing the impact of what they're doing. So do we, in this third verse, are we still hearing what they did wrong?
Oh yeah, they've just expanded it.
And now we're seeing how's God feeling about this?
He's angry.
He's angry. Why is he angry?
Because they stopped following him.
They departed from the standard of holiness that God said. Remember the covenant?
Yeah.
You follow me.
They went against the 10 Commandments.
They went
The
against
first commandment, thou shalt not serve other gods.
And they had already had that commandment. That wasn't a new thing.
Yep.
Okay. Somebody on 14. Now we get God's response. Okay, somebody read 14.
In his anger against Israel, the Lord gave them into the hands of raiders who plundered them. He sold them into the hands of their enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist.
Okay, so let's look at God's punishment often in the Old Testament. How did God correct them?
Gave them to other nations.
Gave them to the hand of the raiders. So raiders would be roving bands, intent on damage, to kill and damage and steal. Now, and he sold them into the hands of their enemies. What did that turn them into?
A copy of their enemies.
Slaves.
Yeah.
And they were no longer able to resist these enemies. What does that mean?
He weakened them to the point they
They were
couldn't do anything.
They couldn't do anything.
They couldn't
just
do
had to
anything.
do whatever they were told.
So raiders, slaves, I can't resist. So this God's punishment on them, it wasn't go right. I shall not do this 100 times. As a teacher, I've done that before. That's such a funny thing to do. But I always made it shorter, and then I had the parents sign it and bring it. So they paid the price of what they did. And then somebody do 15.
Whenever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them, just as he had sworn to them. They were in great distress.
Had they seen in the book of Joshua examples of battle where the Lord was with them?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely.
Now there was one battle, remember the battle of Ai? Yeah. Where they had gone about it all wrong and God let judgment, but then they repented and came back, and the battle of Ai was
See, that AI started way back then.
Yeah, AI started. Now, I'm not sure how they got a power source to plug in that
Data center.
computer. So here we come. They were in great distress. So who do you bet they called out to?
God.
They called out to God. So I wanted to get an idea of what is a judge, just so you're clear on that, because this is going to come up all throughout these next. We think of judge, we may think of Supreme Court judge, we may think of the courthouse. That's pretty much as far from the truth as what these judges really were. So I put a definition here because we've got to have a different mindset against the judge. Okay, a judge is a deliverer. Who's it provided by? God. It's not mainly a courtroom official, but a military leader and a spiritual leader who rescues Israel from oppression. God raised them up when the people do what?
Cry out.
Cry out. And they will lead Israel back to safety toward covenant faithfulness.
And it was up and down, up and down.
It was up and down. And as I said at the beginning, the downs got deeper.
Worse.
The downs got worse as you move through the book of Judges. So think military.
There were some good judges and some bad judges.
Some of the judges had really big flaws. You know, did you remember the one? Her name was, I don't know if the enemy's name was JL or the woman's name was JL. God used her to drive a fence peg through the skull of the conquering army. So God used all people. I thought it's kind of an interesting story how God used that woman, and then we're going to look at how God used Rebecca in this. He wanted them to go back to his arms and be faithful. Oh, I'm getting the sign, aren't I?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to pick up with this next week. See, they should divide the lesson into two. So I'm going to divide it. Again, it doesn't give a specific point, but it talks about the cycle. And then some more judges, and then time to think about. But we're going to stop right here. I am going to tell those people out there goodbye. And